So, hello, welcome back to another episode. And today we're talking about IED, which stands for Intermittent Explosive Disorder. On the right-hand side, you can see my notes on the topic. What is intermittent explosive disorder? Partly from the mayoclinic.com site. Intermittent explosive disorder, IED, is a mental health condition marked by frequent impulsive anger outbursts or aggression. The episodes are out of proportion to the situation that trigger them and cause significant distress. And this is basically also a fundamental thing of this disorder, that when something really small happens, one really bursts out in anger and or certain other behaviors that are right beneath that in the text. And this is very significant, or this is important to note and to see there. Intermittent explosive disorder is one of several impulsive control disorders, so there's more of them. There is definitely a few of them, but today we're only talking about this one. People with IED are aware that their anger outbursts are inappropriate, but feel like they can't control their actions during the episodes. So it is not like they are doing it because they want to do it. They're doing it because they think it is useful to do that. No, most often afterwards, and this is also part of the text then, they feel embarrassed. They feel bad because of whatever they did, because of whatever they said, because of their behavior that they have had in this episode. So it might be explaining it like a panic attack. It just happens. You don't really want it to happen, and you don't really make it happen, but it just happens. It is a disorder. The aggressive outbursts might be, and it really, I think, depends on the individual. It depends on several different factors. They are impulsive, so they are not planned, happen rapidly after being provoked, last no longer than 30 minutes, cause significant distress, and cause problems at school, work, and or home. If you have IED, right before an anger outburst, you may experience rage, irritability, an increasing sense of tension, racing thoughts, poor communication, increased energy, tremors, heart palpitations, or chest tightness. And after an outburst, as I said before, you may feel a sense of relief followed by regret and embarrassment, probably because you fucked up. A multitude of different reasons why one might have that, I actually want to say syndrome, but have this disorder. Genetics is one, then also biological factors and also environmental factors. Studies have shown that brain structure and function are altered in IED. For example, these things. So studies suggest that it affects the amygdala, which is part of your brain involved in emotional functioning. In addition, studies show that the level of serotonin, very important, is lower than normal in people with IED. So in general, this means that those people are not as satisfied with, I would say, their life, with whatever they're doing, because they do not have as much serotonin, which is also important then for therapy. I have read that there are drugs in terms of serotonin. I think it was actually inhibitors, which was quite interesting to see that, they're not trying to boost serotonin, but maybe also different ways in which you can build on that. Then there's environmental factors, experiencing verbal and physical abuse in childhood, and this is the reason why I'm willing to talk about that, and or witnessing abuse during childhood appears to play a role in the development of IED. Having experienced one or more traumatic events in childhood also seems to play a role. Childhood trauma and childhood abuse is unfortunately something a lot of people have experienced, and probably also will experience in the future as well, because there is not too much awareness of that, I think. Not many people are talking about it, at least not in my circles. I have quite never talked about that with somebody, even though it is such an important topic and such a crucial one. Gabor Maté, I think he is a psychologist, psychoanalyst, and whatever, very smart guy, and very in the space of childhood trauma and childhood abuse and what it makes with the people and what it actually does to the people, also long term in their adolescence and so on and so forth. And he stated something of the lines of 80% of the disorders people are having, so I think it was mentally related, might also be physically, because there is still a very deep bond between physical health and also mental health. 80% are because of childhood trauma, and most people have experienced that, and most people have issues because of that, but also most people are not really aware of that it is because of the childhood trauma. that they're experiencing those symptoms, having hard times with different things. There we go. Approximately 80% of people with IED have another mental health condition, with anxiety disorders, externalizing disorder, intellectual disabilities, autism, and bipolar disorder being the most common. Which makes sense. When you're noticing, or when you're, for example, so unhappy with your life, so unhappy with how things are, because of those serotonin levels, maybe because of whatever this condition does to you in your life and your private life and even your work life, it might really get you into depression. It might really get you into feeling you're worthless and feeling you can't actually do anything about that, because you don't want this to happen, but it still happens frequently. And there's a point afterwards as well, how it is measured. So there's either high frequency and low intensity episodes, and then there's low frequency and high intensity episodes. High frequency, for example, is verbal aggression or physical aggression toward property, animals, or people occurring twice weekly on average for 3 months. The aggression does not result in physical harm to people or animals or the destruction of property. And then the low frequency and high intensity episodes, 3 episodes involving damage or destruction of property and or physical assault involving physical injury against animals or other people, occurring within a 12-month period. So there is a distinction, but when a professional, and I do want to point out, it is about a professional. It is not about me saying that. It is about a professional. When a professional sees and thinks that either one of those 2 categories is verified, or you or a person fits into these, then this disorder might be indeed the case, or one might have this disorder indeed. But what to do about it? What can I do, or what can one do? What can one suggest? And this was also provided by the Mayo Clinic, which it's quite a good article. It was quite an interesting article to see. Still, I also tried to figure out whether it is a source to rely on, if it is a source to keep in mind. So Mayo Clinic as a platform, Mayo Clinic as an institution, and as basically knowledge source, or source of knowledge, source of information. And I think it is always quite difficult to say. It is about people. People are writing articles. People state this, people state that. Of course, I think they are somewhat corrected if there are some really heavy things that are just not true and whatever. But I think it makes sense to also search for different sources and maybe look out for similarities or differences in these 2 sources. I have already done that, or also done that with this article, or with what I've been trying to find regarding this issue. Period. So there are multiple ways, apparently, on how you can deal with it. This again is provided by the Mayo Clinic, but I've also seen a different way which was provided by a book. So the first one is cognitive restructuring, or restructing. This involves changing faulty assumptions and unhelpful thoughts about frustrating situations and perceived threats. Relaxation training, relaxing techniques like deep breathing and progressive muscle relaxation, tensing and relaxing different muscle groups while imagining situations that provoke anger, can help minimize your response to triggering situations. Coping skills training, this involves role-playing situations that may cause an explosive episode and practicing healthy responses like walking away, which was also stated to do when you can, one should walk away. Since it is fairly difficult to just be like, okay, I'm not just getting angry. It happens. It is explosive. This is why it is called intermittent explosive disorder. The last one is relapse prevention. This involves educating people with IED that reoccurrence of impulsive aggressive behavior is common and should be viewed as a lapse or slip rather than a failure, which also plays into the whole cognitive restructuring and basically also framing, trying to see things differently, trying to see whatever you're encountering or whatever is happening to you in a different light, and trying to work on that, trying to deal with it, trying to get better, but accepting that sometimes one slips, sometimes there is a bad day, sometimes this, that, and the other thing happens. We all are overwhelmed sometimes, we are all stressed sometimes, and especially when you're having something, when you're having an illness, mentally or physically, it is totally fine when one is having a bit of a worse day. Don't even want to say a bad day, there is no bad day. Some other things you can do, and this is provided by, this is something you should be doing, and some other things you might think about was from the book Mind Over Mood by Christine A. Pedesky. So it is a 7-column framework from the book. I thought it was quite interesting, not only because it was in the context of intermittent explosive disorder, just also because in terms of anger being an issue a lot of people are having, anger being something a lot of people have to deal with, and also myself. One reason as well why I'm willing to go through this, why I'm willing to talk about that, is because I think that I have this disorder. Not just because I read about it, not because I Google for things and then believe in it. No, I have had issues with anger for quite a bit, quite often in my life as well, and it really quite tightly fits the things I've seen, the things I have experienced, and also this inability, this feeling like you cannot do anything about that, feeling like it's just happening to you, and you can maybe just hope that it doesn't happen again, because it is explosive, it is very difficult to handle. So, what could you do? The first step is calm yourself. The second, write down the situation that triggered the negative thoughts. Identify the moods that you felt in the situation. Write down the automatic thoughts you experienced when you felt the mood. The most significant of these are your hot thoughts. Identify the evidence that supports these hot thoughts. Identify the evidence that contradicts the hot thoughts, which I think is incredibly important. You're saying, yes, this was my thought, and yes, this made me, maybe, quote unquote, made me do this, that, or the other thing. But on the other hand, contradicting it. Well, this is another thought I had that is really kind of the opposite of the other thought, and so on and so forth, like challenging one's mind and challenging one's behavior. Really hard not to be completely on one side and or basically just completely one-sided. Now identify fair, balanced thoughts about the situation. Finally, observe your mood now and decide on your next steps. Other things to do: relaxation techniques, changing the ways you think, which is cognitive restructuring, communication skills, learning to change your environment and leaving stressful situations when possible, and avoid mood-altering substances, as well as use problem solving. Avoiding mood-altering substances, I think a very big point, also because people that are having intermittent explosive disorder apparently seem to be quite prone to having problems with substances and really liking them and enjoying them, and as well as some other things, but this just struck me. So people are angry, a lot of people have issues with anger, and also many more things: anxiety, depression, maybe feeling unworthy and not having meaning in life, not feeling the sense of being fulfilled, which might also have to do with serotonin deficits, as with this disorder. And I think as well, I'm not quite aware of anything, and I don't know anything, but I would believe that there is also something with hormones in quite a lot of disorders that then also play with or have something to do with feeling happy, fulfilled, and everything else, which just underlines, and this is also a big point from Gabor Maté, that there is, and I want to underline, there is a connection between the body and quote-unquote soul, or at least the mind and mindset and so on and so forth. People seemed incapable of considering their own emotional needs and were driven by a compulsive sense of responsibility for the needs of others. They all had difficulty saying no, which was an article about anger and childhood trauma, or just childhood trauma in general. Those people are having problems with saying no. And I don't want to say when you're just having problems with saying no and maybe standing up for yourself that you are having such a disorder or having this, that, and the other thing. It is just something to be aware of, as it is in general smart and useful to be aware of various different things one is doing. Just being aware of, okay, every time when I'm in this situation, I act in that way. Or every time when I'm in that situation, I act in this way. Just figuring things out and trying to see certain patterns one is using or one is evolved with to maybe then conclude a conclusion out of that and maybe see that, okay, this might have something to do with that, this, and or the other thing. As a workaholic physician needing the whole world to love and admire me, and above all to need me, I also found it impossible to say no. No matter how busy I was, I always accepted one more patient and one more counseling client, one more difficult case as I did so. There was less and less space for myself in my own life. The result was chronic back pain and a constant low-grade depression. It was when my own difficulties finally dragged me into therapy, kicking and screaming in resistance, of course, that I began to recognize the same traits in others, which was Gabor Maté's life at some point. Long-term studies of medical students at Johns Hopkins and Harvard undergraduates have confirmed that certain emotional traits in youth tend to be associated with illness later in life, quite apart from lifestyle influences such as smoking or drinking or exercise habits, which once again underlines there is a connection between the mind and the body. There is one. Apparently, some Canadian physician that was quite important or quite well known, I've forgotten the name, was very good, and also very good partly because of the fact that he has seen that there is a connection between mind and body. Because there is a connection between mind and body. Like I have been, many of them are workaholics whose professional lives fill up the spaces where a deeper, more rounded personal existence should be. And I have seen that as well in other people and also myself. This, okay, I'm just working now. I'm completely filled with tasks to do to basically get rid of the sense of nothingness, the sense of not having any meaning, not having anything to do, not having anything, smart to do. But one should rather work on one's personal existence, one's personal life, one's personal thoughts, oneself, focusing on oneself and trying to solve certain problems one is having or one thinks is having, because when one is doing so, when one is able to solve one's problems, first of all, you can help somebody else to solve the exact same problems, and second of all, you can in general try to help somebody. But I quickly wanna have a look at this article. To verify that it was on anger. Yes, it was. But yeah, with that being said, this is the end of the stream. I've hopefully been able to share something of importance to you and or with you, and I'm hopefully going to see you the next time.